first got you into making music?
Well, really, listening to the Stones and music, sort of like when I was sort of 12, 13, something like that. And I, through the Stones, I followed it into blues and things like Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, and Little Walter. And then at school, one of my teachers, the art teacher, heard me talking about Muddy Waters, and he brought in an album. And yeah, that was really great. So, like, he gave me more insight into it. It was a Lead Belly album. It was a 30-minute thing on it. Apparently, he was being interviewed on it and stuff like that. It's quite a collector's item nowadays, but it got me into playing folk music and stuff like that. And then also, like, I'm half Irish. My mum's from Belfast, and from as long as I can remember, we used to go over to Belfast every year, and all my cousins played and sang. They used to go for a carry out to the pub, come home and sing Irish folk songs. And one of them ended up going to Canada and becoming a professional singer as well. But I learnt a lot of my material from them, and then listening to blues stuff off the records there. And then by the time I was sort of 15, I had a bit of a repertoire for playing. And then I ran off to London, busking, living on the streets for a while. And made a living busking. Then I managed to get a flat, things like that. But I've been in London not very long and started getting gigs. So I was gigging from I was like 16, wow. 17, and then I met other guys, and we had a duo with a guy for quite a long time. And we were always getting picked up in the streets by managers that wanted to make us into pop stars, because at the time London was rife with people who wanted to become managers of people and make money at them. And we met a lot of them, and we'd done loads of recordings for different people, some that came pretty near the mark of making it big sort of thing. We, at one point, I think it was 1969, 1970, we signed with Island Records with Chris Blackwell to do a single. And that was going to be a big thing. We had actually deals through which were like fantastic deals, doing albums and stuff and things like that. And they all fell apart because our manager turned out to be a bit of a fool. Won't get into too much detail because it'd take up a book to tell you about it. But we signed with him because he was the original manager for Curved Air, produced our first album, The Coloured One. And he got them a huge deal and all this, and he was going to do the same for us. And he got us on radio on Sounds of the 70s, got us gigs at the Speakeasy, and those sort of things and that. And he had us signed up to do the Old Grey Whistle test. So we signed a deal with him, and then we found out he was pretty much blacklisted by a lot of people. And we lost our recording deals we had. We got dropped by Island Records after we'd done a single. And after that, I just decided I'd make a living just playing rather than trying to even do recording and stuff like that, because I saw and I knew people that I met, and I knew a lot of the quite famous people, and they told me it was a nightmare. So I just made my living by doing gigs.
So what is your creative process like? Some people ask me, is it the words or the tune that come first? How do you?
I just get a combined idea normally when it comes into my head, sort of like, it's suddenly born. I've got, either wake up with an idea or something like that, and normally in the morning I'll be twiddling around the guitar, and all of a sudden I'll get a riff and I'll get an idea for a song. It'll just come in. I don't sit down to deliberately write, it's just something that pops into my head. It's like an inspiration sort of thing, it pops in, and then you just, hatch it basically like an egg.
So, have you had to make any sacrifices for your music career?
My ex-wife would probably say yeah. But it's I think when I was doing it full time, yeah, it definitely is. It's a hard thing, because you're on the road, or you're playing all the time, you're out and gigging all the time. Even when I was working in Sydney, and I was doing most of my work in Sydney because of the amount of clubs that were about, and just doing the occasional tour for a month or so. You've got no family life, you get married or whatever, and you're out doing one job and they're at home. So that's the thing, your whole life is playing, and it's a self-centered, obsessive thing that you're out playing. If you're not playing that night, you're in seeing somebody else doing a gig. you know, that type of thing, or else you're in promoting yourself by going up and jamming with somebody in a club. So you're out basically 7 nights a week. So yeah, family life for the first part of my life. You know, when I was doing it, I did it for 25 years, and that was really.
So how did you meet Jane?
Well, I decided I'd been back and forth to Australia, and I'd been out there a couple of times doing clubs out there, and I'd been there. The last time I'd been out was for 5 years, and decided to come back here, and decided to do a daytime job. You know, give up. Well, not give up playing, but give up doing it for a living. Because I've been making a good living in Australia. I've been doing really well there. I'm literally playing 5 days a week, and then on Saturday and Sunday doing 2 and 3 gigs on Saturday and Sunday. So when I came back here, I decided to come back to the UK. I decided to have a bit of a break from doing it full time. I having to rely on the money, and I went into working in mental health. So I was still gigging though. Because you're obsessed with it. You know, I was still doing 4 nights a week. And I was working in a day centre for people that were in and out of the mental hospital. They were in and out for what we call the revolving door. They'd have a breakdown, go in, they'd be kicked out 3 days later, and then they'd be sent to me for daycare. So I was working there, and Jane was working for the health authority as a social worker with people that were landed in Hastings. And we met at the centre. So she saw me at the centre and then chased me until she got me, basically. I love that.
So she's absolutely fab.
Yeah.
And absolutely stunning. She's brilliant. So what's your most rewarding experience as a musician?
I think the most rewarding part is that when you get in and you're playing in front of an audience and they're singing along with songs that you've written. And most of that in Australia because people knew your stuff out there, so you go to a gig and people come up and ask for songs that they heard you do on the radio or whatever. That's rewarding. And recording sometimes, I think one of my first big things that came to me was when I was with Island Records and they signed us in to do a single, and they booked in a 40-piece orchestra to do it with, and Cat Stevenson wanted us to do one of his songs because he was with the label and they liked my voice, so he wanted me to do How Can I Tell You I Love You, and then they were going to do one of my songs on the B-side, and they brought in these guys to play guitar because I was just at that time an acoustic player. And it turned out a guy, nobody'd heard of him, but he said he was shit hot. And it turned out he was Gary Moore. And it was Gary on guitar and Mick Graven's from Procol Harum on the other guitar.
Wow.
And the funny thing, if you're into guitars, the guitar that Gary had at the time was a Gibson Les Paul that he just got from Peter Green, one of the most famous guitars right now. At the time we didn't know it, he didn't know it was just Peter's guitar. And he said, I said, well, I don't play electric, can I have a go? And he said, oh yeah, sure, play the guitar. So I played his Gibson for a while in the studios. But one of the biggest things to me was one of the people that was on the session was Madeline Bell from Blue Mink. And she was doing backing vocals with Doris Troy. And Doris was absolutely lovely and basically took us under her wing because I was like 20 years old and she really liked what I was doing. And Madeline did, and they were really, really nice to us. And I hung out with them for a while, for a couple of weeks when Doris was doing stuff, and she was working with George Harrison at the time, doing an album with him, and she was really, really supportive. And she was the first real professional who wiped the floor with anybody had seen. You know, when she'd done a gig, she opened her mouth and wow, you just sat there. You know, but she was so good and they were so professional. And like in Gary, when you played with Gary, I showed him the song that I was doing so he could work out what he was going to play on it. And I was just sitting there and he's got this Gibson Les Paul, a little amplifier, I don't know what it was, and the sound was just amazing, just blew me away. And I'm sitting there trying to look cool, but I was absolutely going, wow. Yeah, I couldn't do it. But at the time he was just another guy, and we hit it off because he was from Belfast. And you know, I sort of like talking about Belfast with him about being there and stuff like that. But those sort of things you look back on, they were really like boosters to what you did. And as I say just now, basically it's the thing when you go and you play a gig and people sing along with what you're doing or get into it. Yeah. You know, when people are actually listening, or when you can go into a pub and you start playing and people actually shut up and listen to what you're doing. I said that's
a height of respect as well, which is nice. So what other instruments apart from, say, acoustic guitar do you generally play now?
No, it's mainly electric, bottleneck, slide, and harp. Play blues harp and that as well.
So, apart from playing instruments, what hobbies or interests do you have outside of your musical career?
I've always been into classic cars, actually, restoring cars, classic cars and that, and I did a little bit of mechanics to train myself about it, went to some courses and stuff and learned about engines and how to strip them down and build them. But it's always been a hobby for me, is sort of getting, as Jane will tell you, when we lived in Scotland for a while, we had a house and it was surrounded by old cars. We used to buy like 2 or 3 old 1950s cars that were scrap, put them together, strip them down, weld them up, rebuild the engines and that, put them back on the road, spray them and stuff, and thoroughly enjoyed doing that.
I'd say you've always been a pretty busy person, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So, what legacy would you like to keep, sort of leave with your music?
Just the songs that I've written and stuff, some of them are quite, to me, you've got meaning to them, heavy songs and stuff like that. Stuff that I've written about immigration, but it's more on the line of how immigration in the way of people who actually move to another country, and then they get there, and then they find that they like it, they love it, but they also miss where they were before. So they're torn between 2 countries, and I've written a song about that, and I've got another couple like that. But stuff like that you leave behind, you leave on as a legacy for other people.
So, how has your recent diagnosis of Alzheimer's affected your performances and your capability to perform?
Well, if I'm not distracted, I'm okay, because I haven't done it for so long. You go into automatic pilot. So if there's nothing else distracting you, I'm fine with it. The way it's affected me now is if I'm trying to learn something new, if I wanted to sort of do another cover of somebody else's song, or if I've written a song and I'm trying to remember what I've written, I write it down and I'm trying to remember the verses. It is difficult to remember the words. It's sort of a mental block. It's like it's at the end of your tongue, but it's not there, and it's harder to retain that information. But I'm sort of like, I just started on medication to slow down the process. So basically, I just hope I fall off a perch with someone else before the Alzheimer's gets me really bad, and want to carry on playing. I'm still fit to gig just now. I think I am. It's okay. Like you should say, like the fingers, they come on automatically, really. But the day that I start to, feel silly on stage, then I'll stop. But hopefully, as I say, it won't happen for a while.
Oh. So finally, what's next for you musically?
You mean gig-wise?
Aye, or...
Yeah. Well, we've got a load of songs, and we're been meaning to record them for a while. But basically, we're at a stage where we're thinking: do you record them onto CD, or do you record them onto, just upload them? And I saw a friend of mine, Pete Davis, has put up a questionnaire asking people what should you do about it, should you do a CD or not. But we're in the same position, so we are going to do either a CD or upload, whatever. But we've got a few gigs coming up. I'm doing, I think, at Filey Folk Festival, Songwriter Circle. I'm doing that. Hunt and Rugby, we're playing a set there at their festival. And we're up at Horncliffe with Judy Dibble. We're doing one at the end of this month. That's up in the Horncliffe Memorial Hall. And then we're back there again for the Beer Festival in July. And we've got one at the chapel in Middlesbrough coming up. So looking forward to that.
That's superb.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed for your magic medication, and
okay.
keep rocking.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Cheers for that.
Cheers.
Bye.